Welcome to Health Club with Julia. I'm your host, health coach, and registered dietitian, Julia Campagna. I'm on a mission to bridge the gap between looking your best and living your life to the fullest. After years of over dieting, struggling with disordered eating, and destroying my social life, I finally found how to reach my dream physique without sacrificing the things I love. Now I'm sharing all my strategies and education with you. We'll be talking all things health, including hormones, metabolism, and lifestyle to help you cut out the confusion and start living. So get cozy and join the club. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Health Club with Julia podcast. As always, I am so happy you are here. Today's a good one because I feel like this is so prevalent. I don't know, it's growing in popularity, not that people want it, but just that I'm seeing it more, and so I'm like, I need to. Let's discuss it. Let's go over it. That is insulin resistance. I don't know why, but I feel like it's either on the rise or it's just more prevalent now. Like, people are talking about it now and noticing and like getting tested for it and seeing that that is an issue for them. But I want to go over all things insulin resistance. I feel like this is thrown around and people hear it and they're like, what the heck is that? / also get really scared about insulin resistance. The good thing is that you can kind of like reverse insulin resistance and help your body out. But it's really like this, I feel like an unknown thing, and not really many people know what it is or like how to overcome insulin resistance. But it is, I feel like, pretty prevalent. Like, I feel like it does happen to a lot of people. So it's time to chit chat about it. Starting with, we of course need to go over like what it is. I'm going to be going over like what it is, what happens in your body when this is occurring, what it could lead to, what causes it, symptoms of it, what to get tested for it, how to overcome it. I'm going to be talking about all the things, but of course we have to start with what it actually is, because you might be listening to this episode whether you have it or you don't. You might be going, what the heck is that? I have no idea what you're even talking about. So, what is insulin resistance? Insulin is a hormone produced by the body, produced by the pancreas. So that is, in a nutshell, really, really, really simply put, what insulin is. Now, the role of insulin, what insulin actually does with the body, so it allows glucose. Glucose is our blood sugar. We'll talk more about that, but it takes glucose in the blood and it puts it into the cells to provide them with energy to function. So it gives our body energy. It helps the glucose that is broken down from food. It helps to kind of disperse that and provide our cells with energy, and then like transports it out. Helps to transport out of the body. So this is what that is. Glucose being our primary source of energy, insulin helps to distribute that and give our body actual energy. So when we think about it, think about like digestion, right? Digestion obviously starts in the mouth. We obviously take in food. We eat our food, and it starts the digestive process in the mouth. Our saliva is our first line of defense. Well, saliva and our teeth, actually, because obviously our teeth breaks down food, but saliva helps to break down that food even further. So digestion starts in the mouth. We put our food in our mouth. We start the digestive process. It then goes down our esophagus into our stomach, and that's where it's broken down even more. And so the food that we eat is broken down into glucose. Without getting too sciencey here, there's a lot of different parts of how food is broken down, but it breaks down into glucose, which is sugar. It's a form of sugar. It's broken into these sugars, and it is released into the bloodstream. Now, when the sugar goes into our bloodstream sugar goes up. When this happens, it signals our pancreas to release insulin, to then take that and put it into cells, transport it, does its thing. Helps the body take that blood sugar and utilize it, basically, is what it's doing. So that's kind of like the role. That's how our body releases insulin. Again, very simple terms to that. But what does that actually mean for insulin resistance then, right? So that's insulin. Okay, that's great. We're talking about insulin resistance and that being the problem. What is insulin resistance and how does that come in? So insulin resistance is basically exactly how it sounds. It's your body's being resistant to insulin. So your body doesn't actually respond to insulin as it should. So when your body is pumping out insulin, right, you go through this whole process, you break down the food, it goes into glucose, it goes into the bloodstream, your body's like, ding, release insulin. So your body is then pumping out insulin. Your body is then not able to respond to that insulin. That is insulin resistance. This can lead to excess glucose in the bloodstream because your body's not actually utilizing that because it's resistant to this insulin. Your body's signaling, hey, let's pump out insulin, and then your body's going, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're doing. And it's like a lack of communication. It's just not responding to that insulin that is being pumped out. So again, leads to excess glucose in the bloodstream, which is a no-no. That's pretty bad. Obviously leads to other things that we'll talk about. So over time, the pancreas tries to regulate your blood sugar by pumping out more, right? So it gets this signal, hey, we got this blood glucose, we need insulin to help out. Okay, your body goes ding, pumps out insulin. When your body's not responding to the insulin, it goes, okay, that's weird. Ding, pumps out more insulin. Your body's still not responding, it's just going to pump out more and more insulin until it can't produce large amounts of insulin anymore. Your body is so resistant to it that it's giving the signal like, hey, I have insulin here, I'm pumping this out to you, let's utilize it, but your body is not doing that. And so it keeps pumping out insulin, and then your body's like, okay, well, I've had enough. You're not working, then I'm going to stop. So I'm trying to say this in a way that's like easy to comprehend, but hopefully you guys understand what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's basically just a signal that your body's not responding to. But the problem is when your cells in your body becomes too resistant to insulin, it's not responding to this insulin output, that is going to lead to other issues, and that's where we see a problem. So other things that this could lead to, obviously elevated blood sugar levels, because your body is not utilizing the insulin to transport and take that blood glucose and do what it needs to do. So you're just having these excess glucose stuck in the bloodstream, so you have elevated blood sugar levels, or this is also called hypoglycemia, but in simple terms, elevated blood glucose levels. This also is what contributes to other very common issues that we see, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes. This is like the first kind of line of defense here. This is what this starts with, and then it can lead to prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. It also leads to other things like PCOS, cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, inflammation markers, increased cortisol levels. Like, it does lead to other things. Most common things that we think of with insulin resistance is going to be prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. Also, I feel like PCOS is pretty common with this as well. So we see this a lot, like I said, with PCOS, with estrogen dominance, because insulin resistance results in increased estrogen levels. Excess estrogen, which I've talked about in my podcast at previous episodes when I'm talking about estrogen dominance and different hormonal topics on my podcast. This gets recirculated because of poor liver function, so that's all kind of connected. Poor liver function leads to excess estrogen. Insulin resistance is side by side with increased estrogen levels. We also see issues with cortisol because cortisol regulates blood sugar levels by increasing them. It helps to turn food for energy. So when we have excess cortisol, it's harder to be sensitive to insulin levels. And I've talked about this on other podcast episodes as well. When where your cortisol is too elevated for too long, cortisol being our stress hormone, our body's really focused on other areas because it's not able to function as well because of this increased stress response that we have, this chronic stress response. So your body's not able to utilize other things like insulin, so it's a lot harder to be sensitive to it, where it can cause insulin resistance. So that's kind of like things that we see it in. Now there's other causes of it as well, like chronic dieting. If you're a chronic dieter, if you are under eating for a long period of time, this can cause insulin resistance. Your body just does not function as well. Again, for various reasons, increased inflammation, increased cortisol, poor gut health, all these different things that come with chronic dieting can also impact your ability to utilize your insulin. Excess body fat can cause insulin resistance problems, poor liver function, for a whole slew of reasons of poor liver function. But I already mentioned the excess estrogen dominance, that plays a role in, and just like toxins in general and excreting, like the liver is our main source of natural detox. There's other things like kidneys and other things that are involved in that, but our liver is very responsible for our detox and like getting things out of the body. So if you have poor liver function, obviously your body's going to be a little bit sluggish and not work as well. Also poor sleep. Again, lots of things happen with poor sleep, but it could increase your insulin resistance. Excessive alcohol can cause this, which also cause poor liver function if abused and used too, or taken in too much. So that kind of is a circle and all connected there. Poor gut health can lead to insulin resistance, high stress, which we talked about with the cortisol. So these are main causes of insulin resistance. So there's a lot of different things, a lot of things that could go on, which is, it's really important to take care of our body as a whole because there's a lot of different things that can go on that can cause this. So we got to look at the body as a whole and different functions and different elements of our health to make sure they're all working, because there's a lot of contributors to this. Now you might be thinking, okay, maybe I don't have PCOS or I don't have estrogen dominance, or, you know, maybe you do, but you might not know if you have insulin resistance. I don't feel like everybody knows. I feel like there's a lot of undiagnosed insulin resistance going on, and you don't really figure it out until things are really bad. But how can you know that you have insulin resistance? So just some common symptoms or signs and symptoms that you might experience that can go hand in hand with insulin resistance. Number one, fatigue. You might have increased sugar cravings where you're just like craving chocolate or sweets a lot more than normal for you. You might have a lower immune system where you might get sick more often. You might have fatty liver. Again, I've talked about poor liver function in terms of insulin resistance. Those kind of go hand in hand. Elevated blood sugar levels, if you're monitoring that, you might see that. Or just with blood sugar in general, if you're having really big like spikes of energy and really harsh drops of energy, you might have blood sugar issues without even testing them, but usually you're going to see if you have elevated blood sugar levels by testing, which I'll get to in a minute. But you might have unexplained weight gain, or it might be really difficult for you to lose weight. This is a very common symptom of insulin resistance, where you're just like, I don't know what's going on, I can't lose weight, or I've been just like gaining weight for no apparent reason. Like there's not anything that I can think of that I'm doing necessarily quote unquote wrong, but I'm gaining weight at a rapid rate, or I just can't lose it. Hair loss, acne, increased hunger, brain fog is a really big one as well. So these are all signs and symptoms of insulin resistance. Now the problem with this, and where testing does come in, which I'm going to talk about here in a moment, but the problem is that all these signs and symptoms can also be signs and symptoms of other diseases or issues, so they can be overlapping. So just because you have these things does not necessarily mean you have insulin resistance. You might have other issues that you need to take a deeper look at, but with these we might get a good idea, especially with the blood sugar levels. That's a really good idea to see if you have insulin resistance. But again, the way that you're most likely going to know if you have blood sugar issues is by testing. So that brings me to testing. What can we do to get done to see if we actually have insulin resistance? Now, if you're someone who's already going in to get checked for PCOS or estrogen dominance, or you have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, you may have insulin resistance. Like that's going to be more common for you to have insulin resistance. But if you don't have these things, or you're not aware of these things that might be happening, you can ask for these in just like a regular checkup. I've said this in past podcast episodes as well, but I urge you to get at least annual blood work done every single year, if not every 6 months, to check on your body and make sure things are going okay, because things can turn and you don't want to go years without actually acknowledging that something's wrong with your body. So get testing done first and foremost, yearly. Make sure you go in for annuals. But what do we test for insulin resistance? There's going to be 3 major pieces to testing that we're going to want to look at. So number 1 is your fasting A1C or hemoglobin A1C. This is going to be a really big marker of diabetes, prediabetes, so we definitely want to get that done. However, there's other things that can impact A1C levels that is not insulin resistance specific. So because of this, we want to test other things to really kind of dial in on insulin resistance. Those 2 things being our fasting blood glucose, so we're going to want to test that. And then I also want to test our fasting insulin. For whatever reason, and I'm not sure the reason why, but when I do testing with clients and we do like a yearly or just like a regular wellness check, they will almost always test your A1C. That one's very common, but you don't always get blood glucose, and you hardly ever, I feel like, get fasting insulin tested. But these things are really important because, like I said, fasting A1C, there could be other things going on that are causing this to be off or abnormal that might not be related to insulin resistance. So we really want to get down to and focus in on insulin resistance by doing the blood glucose and fasting insulin. Those are really, really important ones to test. So make sure if you're talking to your doctor about insulin resistance, they may be testing this anyway, but if they are not, make sure you get those ones added into your tests. You know what's terrible as a female? Not even knowing how your body operates. The amount of women I've spoken to who don't even know the basics of their menstrual cycle is crazy, especially given the fact that it takes up a good portion of our lives. If you're ready to learn more about your hormones, I'm talking Menstrual Health 101, all the way to in-depth about each sex hormone, what it does, etc. I am running a free masterclass on Thursday, June 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information and to register for that, you can comment on this episode or DM me on Instagram at jfaye_rd. That is at JFAYE_RD. Now there's other things that we can test as well. I've already kind of alluded to some of these, but like hormonal issues, cortisol issues, gut health issues, all of these things can contribute to insulin resistance as well. So you might want to go and get those things tested as well. So you can do a hormone test, whether that is through serum labs or something like a Dutch that is a little bit more comprehensive. That can help us actually understand your body a bit deeper. So I always recommend a Dutch just as like the gold standard, the highest, that you can go for hormone testing. But also on top of that, you want to do a cortisol test. Cortisol test is included with a Dutch test, so you will do both when you get a Dutch test. If you're not doing a Dutch test and you want to test cortisol though, I do recommend doing a 4-point cortisol test. There are blood serum cortisol tests that you can do, which is just basically testing your blood, and it's only like one marker. It's okay to tell us if there's something off, but it's not going to be the top test that I would want to get tested for cortisol. If we are trying to dial in on our cortisol and see if there's something wrong there, I would highly recommend a 4-point cortisol test. This is a test that is taken at different points of the day, waking, mid-morning, afternoon, and evening, to see how your cortisol trends, because your cortisol does fluctuate throughout the day. It peaks in the morning and then it slowly comes down throughout the course of the day to be lowest at night for us to go to bed. So it does fluctuate, and we want to see those fluctuations, because if it's too high or too low at certain points in the day, we could see, maybe something's off with your cortisol. So that's what I would say with the cortisol test. And then a GI map. This one, usually a lot of doctors won't test. You would have to go to a functional medicine doctor or some sort of gastro-GI doctor to get this done. Your regular PCP more than likely will not test this. But it goes really in depth with different elements of your gut health. Really big piece with insulin resistance is your gut microbiome, seeing if there's any imbalances, dysbiosis, or anything going on, SIBO, things like that. So the GI map test can test for all of those things to make sure that everything is good, and or if something is off, that can relate to insulin resistance. So those are more comprehensive ones, the Dutch cortisol and GI map. But you can start with blood serum, especially doing fasting A1C, blood glucose, fasting insulin. Those are like your minimum markers that you need in a blood test. If you're going to start with anything, I would start with those, and then you may want to get more comprehensive tests if needed, but I would start with those as first line. Now, this is great, right? We went over what insulin is, how that plays a role with insulin resistance, what insulin resistance is, what can cause it, labs to get tested to check if you even have it or not, signs and symptoms that you might experience. That's all fine and dandy, but if you are experiencing the signs and symptoms, if you get tested and it is showing positive for insulin resistance, what the heck then do you do to support your insulin resistance? So this is where working with a practitioner or a functional medicine doctor of any kind can be really helpful, because there's kind of a lot that goes into it. I mean, your basic needs are going to be supporting your blood sugar, but there's other things that go along with that you may need extra support on. So we'll start with supporting your blood sugar. The biggest thing with supporting your blood sugar is no naked carbs. I've said this in past episodes as well, but no naked carbs basically meaning don't just have carbs on their own. Try to pair your carbs with a protein and a fiber and a fat source. These things, protein, fiber, fat, these are going to, one, help you feel satiated, but they're also going to slow the rate of digestion, which is going to help ease the spike, the blood sugar spike that you would get. So if, basically, again, just trying to give an example, if you had just a carb, so let's say you just had, I don't know, a cookie, or I don't know, something that's really just like sugar based and nothing else, like no protein, no fiber, no fats with it, you're going to have a pretty decent spike in blood sugar and also drop in blood sugar. If you paired that, like I'll even use still the example of the cookie. If you had a cookie on the side of a full lunch where you're getting a protein, for the sake of the example, I'm just going to use a really bland basic meal of chicken and, I don't know, broccoli, let's say, and then you have a cookie on the side, you're getting protein in, you're getting fiber from the vegetables. There may be some fat depending on what kind of protein you have. There's going to be some fat in the cookie as well, but that is going to help slow the rate of digestion of that cookie and also ease that blood sugar spike. So instead of having a really drastic spike and drop from just having the cookie alone, the protein, the fat, the fiber from the meal that you're having it with is going to decrease the amount that it spikes and drops off. So that's going to help just kind of not flatline, but ease the spike of blood sugar that you get in response to having that carb. So always pair carbs with protein, fat, fiber. Also, just in general, increasing your fiber is really important. Fiber is important for many, 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 many different things in the body, but again, especially with balancing your blood sugar, and again, other things, but increase your fiber. We want to have minimum of like 25 grams of fiber a day, if not like 25, 30 minimum. We do not typically get enough fiber in our diets. As a regular individual, the average American does not get nearly enough fiber, so make sure you're having a lot of fruit, a lot of vegetables, protein, whole grain sources, legumes, beans, seeds, nuts. These things are going to be super high in fiber, and you want to have diversity. So definitely make sure, again, basically the easiest way to do this is to get in primarily whole foods in your diet and a variety of different kinds of whole foods. So that's, without stressing yourself out, that's going to be like the easiest way to know if you're getting fiber, but we definitely want to hit our fiber goals every single day. Another thing that you can do with blood sugar in terms of nutrition is bitter foods like arugula, beets, citrus, different sauerkraut, different bitter foods. This is going to help with digestion, right? So whenever I'm talking to a client or someone in general who's having GI problems and just like wants better help with digestion, I always recommend bitters, whether that's bitters through food or digestive bitter supplement, which I'll talk about. But this helps with digestion because it helps with releasing digestive juices to help digest and absorb more vitamins and minerals from our meals that we're having. So that's going to be really important in your diet. And then again, if you're not really getting that through diet, you can get a digestive bitter supplement. There are a few out there. A lot of them are like tinctures, like little drops that you can take. And I would definitely say that if you're not going to get it through food necessarily, I would go digestive bitters route. Other things that you can do to support insulin resistance, again, in terms of supporting blood sugar, try to go for walks after eating. It doesn't have to be a really long walk. Even a 5 to 10 minute walk after eating can help with digestion and with utilizing that blood sugar. But just getting up, getting moving in some capacity is really helpful. So you can get up and go for some walks after eating. Strength training is really important. This is in terms more of like muscle mass. So obviously strength training helps with building muscle. And the more that muscle you have in your body, it helps your body absorb glucose better. It also helps your body become more sensitive to insulin. So for all the other reasons, if you don't know how important strength training is, and it's so important for all things in life, but again, even here, it is really important for insulin resistance, and helping your body become more sensitive to insulin again. So definitely want to prioritize your strength training, a minimum of 3 times a week. We want to work on our stress management. Again, really important for a lot of different things, but I've already talked about cortisol in its relation to insulin resistance. So of course, we want to work on our stress management through different tactics and techniques. You may need to do something daily, especially if you're feeling really overwhelmed. Make sure you prioritize that. There's a lot of different things that help with stress management: going on walks, getting out in nature, listening to music, journaling, meditation, belly breaths, or just breath work in general is like my ultimate favorite thing to do for stress management. But make sure you're doing your stress management and prioritizing that. Also want to prioritize your sleep management and making sure you're getting proper sleep, and not just hours. Yes, hours is very important. We want to be making sure that we are getting, 7.5 minimum, if not 8 minimum hours of sleep every night. So quantity is really important, but also quality is really important. You might be getting 7.5, 8 hours of sleep, but if it's interrupted sleep, if you're not getting deep sleep, then your quality is low and you're actually not getting great sleep. So we want to make sure we are prioritizing our sleep hygiene, like getting ready for bed, morning routine, night routines, all the things surrounding sleep. And then if all else fails, this would be all the things that I would say first and foremost. Now, if you are doing all of these things to a T and you're like, I'm really nailing down all of these things, I'm supporting my blood sugar, my nutrition is really good, I'm managing my stress, my sleep is great, and you're still feeling like that's not helping enough, you can add supplements. Again, always be wary with supplements. Always talk to your doctor about supplements before you just start adding things in. But a couple of supplements that can help support insulin resistance. One is vitamin D. A lot of us are deficient in vitamin D in general, so it's just important to take vitamin D usually for most people, but also can help with insulin resistance. Omega-3 supplements or fish oil can be really helpful. You have inositol. This is one that research has shown to help with insulin resistance. Again, talk to your doctor about dosage and all of those kinds of things. CoQ10 has also been shown to help with insulin resistance. Another one that you also want to be wary of and definitely talk to your doctor about dosage and or needs for you is berberine. I feel like this is also on the rise. I feel like this is getting more attention and just like it's circulating out there more, but definitely be careful with berberine. Talk to your doctor first about dosage and whatnot, but that can be really beneficial. And then other things that are kind of like, I guess, technically food, not necessarily a supplement, but can act like a supplement. Apple cider vinegar can help to, also, before I even go further, make sure you dilute apple cider vinegar. Don't just take apple cider vinegar straight from the bottle, but diluted apple cider vinegar can help control and ease those blood sugar spikes, which obviously is really important for insulin resistance. And then cinnamon. Cinnamon can also help with your blood sugar and insulin resistance as well. So you can sprinkle you can sprinkle cinnamon on different foods, make different like sweet things. I also have it on savory things sometimes. Like I used to make potatoes and sprinkled peanut butter and cinnamon on it all the time, and that seems like a weird combination maybe to you. You're like, why would you put that on potatoes? Especially sweet potatoes though, they're so good. But anyway, you can use cinnamon in lots and lots of different recipes and things like that. So those are some things to support insulin resistance. Now again, as always, this is where it is really helpful to work with a functional medicine practitioner or just a practitioner in general who can help you with this, because there's a lot of different things that go into it. There's a lot of different supplements that you may or may not want to take. You also do want to get your testing done and see where it's coming from. Is this related to PCOS? Is this related to hormone imbalances? Is this related to diabetes, excess weight? What is it related to, so that you have a better idea of what you need to do to help manage and reverse the insulin resistance. So there's a lot of pieces that go into this. Definitely beneficial to work with someone who can help you out with it, but these are some starting points: causes, signs and symptoms to even figure out if you may or may not have it, labs that you can ask your doctor to help you get tested, and how to support your insulin resistance. Now this was, I feel like, pretty quick. I just kind of like spewed everything out at you this time, but if you do you have any questions regarding insulin resistance in general, whether you're questioning if you have it or not, if you want more support and to work with me through your insulin resistance, if you have any other questions just in general, of course, as always, my DMs are always open for you guys. You can DM me on Instagram at JFARD, JFA_RD, I should say. So catch me there if you need any more support on this stuff. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Hopefully if you're in this boat, you get to the bottom of it. We can do it together if you need to, just let me know. But that concludes this episode, and I will see you guys next week.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Health Club with Julia podcast. If you loved the episode, share the podcast and tag me, and subscribe so you don't miss any further episodes. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM. Thanks for being a part of the club. See you next time.